Hey, it's Heidi Dawson, and this is Wednesday Wisdom, where I interview wildly successful people from across the world, where we get an inside view into what their daily life looks like. Success leaves clues, and on Wednesdays, we're finding them. Join me now for the latest wildly successful interview. Hi, guys. Welcome to episode 102 of the Wildly Successful Lifestyle Podcast. I'm really excited to interview my next guest. And I try to cover all of the areas that just make us better and that help us live our best life, right? And money is a big part of that. Well, Claudia Sawaf has been a wealth manager for over 20 years, but more recently is the founder of Afflowent, which is designed to really guide us to rewrite our money stories. And we all have them. I know I do. But anyway, we can rewrite them to make financial decisions with confidence and peace of mind instead of being so nervous about it. Making money doesn't have to be complicated, and Claudia is simplifying it and creating a community designed to empower us to create financial freedom without all of the anxiety. So let me introduce you to Claudia. Hi, Claudia. It's so good to see you again.
Oh, Heidi, it's amazing to be with you this afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for coming on. Just for everyone listening, Claudia and I met in California at a seminar, Brendan Burchard seminar, and we had a quick connection and stayed in touch through social media, which is one of the really nice benefits, nice benefits of social media. So thank you so much. I'm so excited to talk to you about this. I've been wanting to talk about finances, and it just was so perfect that I was like, I need to talk to Claudia. She has such a great, such massive experience in that field. So I'm excited to get these questions, and I know everybody listening will be happy to hear some of these answers. So just to kind of set us off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and how you discovered your passion for, I know your course is Afflowent. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Sounds great, Heidi. And there's no better time to talk about finances than now. I'm going to set the expectation right there, because as you and I know, money, finance always comes with a bit of a baggage and past experiences. So I'm going to say, today is always the day to start new, create new moments and create new opportunities. I have been in this business for 20 plus years. And the way I started out, I'm going to say it fell on my lap and I fell in love with the industry.
Okay.
Purely because it gave me an opportunity to make an impact and help even the most successful individuals who are nervous and anxious about money with a clear and simple strategy. And as soon as I saw that I had the opportunity to help on such a massive level, by being a trusted advisor, a fiduciary, someone who truly does what's in the best interest of the client, I knew that this is something I want to explore further. And here we are 20 years later.
Right. It is so true. It's the idea around money. It's so taboo to talk about it, but at the same time, it is so important. You have to have money, yes, and you have to make sure that you're set up for the future. And I think that a lot of people, that's where it gets a little tricky, is making sure they have enough money for retirement, or they're putting away enough money. So I know that I talk a lot about habits on my podcast, and I believe that they create who you are and they create your life. So are there certain habits, I'm going to ask you a little bit differently, that financially, responsible people have, or financially wealthy people have?
And it really varies. As you know, good habits, they come in all colors of the rainbow spectrum, right? And we all have our own go-to habits that catapult our life forward. But I will share some of the more common habits. And one of those is, regardless of what age you are, Heidi, and your audience is, regardless of where you are in your life, is create a habit of actually being aware and living in reality with your finances. what I mean by that is sometimes, and Heidi, I'm going to be very honest and authentic here. People look at me and say, oh, you've been doing this for 20 plus years, but I'm not immune either. I
Right.
fall into past traps and past mindsets and thinking. So I am also a student of finance every single day to create new realities and new future opportunities. And when I say be aware, be accurate, and live in reality, it's to have dialogues about where you are right this minute,
Okay.
and then map out where you'd like to be. And
Got
sometimes that's not easy because it does mean uncovering, you know what, there might be credit card debt, or maybe I've been overspending. Maybe I just haven't looked at this area, right? Because what's sometimes the easiest is just ignore,
I know
right? Push it
and
under the rug.
it's scary. It is scary. I know for me, like and we'll talk a little bit more about this, but I grew up in a family where we didn't have a lot of money. And so it was scary. The idea of money was scary to me. And then as I got older, I got around people that weren't scared of money at all. In fact, they embraced it and had a lot of it, and I was just like,
Yeah.
wow, that's a big mindset difference. So, you're saying that being aware, that is valuable advice for your across the board life, not just financially, because I think a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people kind of go through life just sort of slumbering through it. But being aware, especially with your finances, is so incredibly important and hard to
Mm-hmm.
do though. So how do people do that?
Well, there is a certain amount of to be aware and accurate and open-minded. It does take looking at everything. So the first thing is take inventory.
Okay.
See exactly where you're at, what is your income, how much money are you bringing in, what are your resources, and then really look at sort of day by day, week by week. And it's not to say that everybody has to live on a budget, Heidi, but I always say a budget can actually be a very beautiful thing because it gives you an opportunity to assess what are my values and where am I actually spending money.
Right.
And even the wealthiest individuals, where you say, why would they even have a budget, right? I mean, they could just spend, but they still like to take a look at their resources, how those resources are allocated, and then they uncover maybe certain expenses where they say, do we really need this?
Right.
Or could we put this towards charities?
Yeah.
And so that's where, I mean, a budget doesn't have to be restrictive and resistance. And many people, by the way, have a huge amount of resistance to budgets. And it has to do with mindset too, Heidi. But
That does.
that's part of being aware, is just knowing where you stand.
I have, from working in the design business for a long time, I found, interestingly enough, my most wealthy clients, even though they do like quality, they're they still are like, we're going to stay here. We want to keep it. And if you bring them something and they're like, oh, okay, I like that enough to spend the money, no problem. But they have budgets. And they are sometimes my most strict, budgets is when I'm working with someone that has a whole lot of money. And I always have thought, and it's helped me to see that, that's probably why they have a lot of money.
Heidi, I'm so glad you say that, because talk about habits, right? We always have to look at, nobody's an overnight success.
Right.
We always have a tendency as human beings to look at people and put them on a pedestal and say, oh, well, they're so lucky. They just got there. Well,
Right.
no, they didn't. They actually, most of the clients that I have that are very wealthy, they actually did not inherit the wealth. They built companies. They built medical practices. They came many times, like you and me included, from humble upbringings.
Right.
And they developed very good habits, and one of those habits is just not overspending.
Right.
It's essentially, if we don't have it, let's write a goal around it, make the money for it, and then have the expenditure. And that's how most of them got to where they are in their current wealthy situation.
Okay, so that let's talk about wealthy then. Okay, that word is thrown around quite a bit. We're talking about wealthy people or people that aren't wealthy. And so what, from your experience, what does wealth mean? to you? Like, is there a certain number? Obviously, there's not a certain number.
Yeah.
Like, well, you can say, well, if they have this much money, they're wealthy. But what does wealth mean to you?
Well, if I may, Heidi, I'm going to share first what wealth means to me and then share maybe what wealthy clients share with me as well.
Okay.
To me, wealth is not just net worth. And in fact, that word net worth is actually a word that I don't necessarily enjoy
Okay.
because I don't put worth to the word net worth as in how much money I have, this is how worthy I am. No.
Okay.
I feel that wealthy is a combination of how fulfilled are you with what it is you currently do in your career, in your life. Because I'm going to say it doesn't matter how much money you make, if you cannot find joy, that you and I know happiness is an inside job,
Oh, yes.
then no amount in the world in your bank account is going to change that.
That's right.
So the clients, and I'm very fortunate, I have the most amazing clients. They're humble, they're humanitarians, they're charitable, they're just extremely amazing human beings. And they will say the exact same thing. You only want to make as much money as you still have joy making it.
That's right.
And so it is more of a, how many other areas of life are there, right? If you take 8 of them, there's relationships, there's health, there's ease and flow, there's how much joy you have, right? There's so many other things than just money. So for me, wealth is an overall package. But I also will say this, money is part of that. And to always expanding in the financial area is a good thing because it can fuel a lot of our goals. We can make an impact in this world. Certainly creates a lot of peace of mind, right? Because finance can cause stress. But I do feel we need to look at all areas of and all dimensions of life to expand in, because money alone is not gonna provide the ultimate happiness, right?
That's absolutely right. I think money, people do believe, oh, if I have more money or if I can win the lottery, or they think that means happiness. And I can say from my experience, I've had money, I've not had money, and my level of happiness doesn't go up with the having or not having. It's what I'm looking at the moment. Now I will say it makes it a lot more fun.
But one of my clients is actually a psychiatrist, and I loved what he said. And I actually am still encouraging him to this point to write a book about this. He calls it the happiness curve. And he should trademark that too. But what he says is, you get to the point, you make money, and then you work harder. He said, you get to that point at the top of this mountain, right? Where if you work any harder, then some of those other areas of life are just going to fall by the wayside, right?
Right.
So this is where the happiness curve ends. So for him, it's like, keep expanding in all areas and don't just overwork yourself. And I could not agree more with that.
Yeah, I love that. That's absolutely true. So you were talking about money, and mindset is a lot of what has to do with money. So many of us carry, including myself, carry deep-seated beliefs about money. Is there a way that we can decipher what those beliefs are and sort of change them if they're not serving us? Because I know a lot of them don't serve us.
No, they really don't. And it doesn't matter whether you grew up wealthy or you grew up in a humble upbringing or you grew up in a scarcity environment. We all carry baggage when it comes to mindset. And one of my dear friends, Monica Roseberry, she's a brain hacking coach. She works with her clients a lot around this topic of mindset. And she taught me one thing, which is that your brain gets programmed between the age of 0 and 7. So imagine that, Heidi, right? Between 0 and 7 is all, you're being basically programmed. All you do is download.
Wow.
So what we need to do, what's extremely helpful as an exercise, is to go back and go as far back as you remember and think about and write down all those things that were essentially just downloaded because your frontal cortex wasn't developed at that point.
Right.
So you don't have willpower. You can't say, no, that's not true. You're just like, okay, money doesn't grow on trees. I guess that's what happens.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and there are beautiful ways. In fact, I did an interview with Monica with Afflowent, with my community, to purely talk about this and to say, Heidi, if I know I have these programs, then how do I get rid of them? And really, there are ways. Just like if let's imagine you never upgraded your computer.
Okay.
Just imagine how slow this thing would be.
Yeah.
So that's why we have
Awful.
computer upgrades and updates, right? And so it's no different, and there are ways to reprogram. But again, first step is be accurate, aware what happened back then, what was the messaging,
Right.
how is it serving you, and how is it not serving you. And I think we all have such an opportunity to figure out all these messages that are simply not
Okay.
serving us, to just turn them around, flip the
Right.
switch.
Right. Just take it and turn it upside down. So
Mm-hmm.
one of mine I know was the money doesn't grow on trees. Of course, that was a big one. I can remember my mom saying that many times. Of course, she had 5 kids, so that's money really needed to be growing on trees. But so what does that do to your mindset? As an adult when you grew up thinking that, like, and how would you overcome something like that as a coach?
Hmm. So I think for me, that's because I heard similar sayings. So even in the German language, there's a very similar saying about money not growing on trees. So I know exactly where you're coming from. And I think what it does is it puts you more into the scarcity category
Yeah.
as opposed to abundance thinking.
Yeah.
And if it's one thing about money is that's very detrimental, is to approach anything in life with fear is not the way to go. But certainly to approach money with a scarcity mindset and with fear of losing it
Right.
is not helping us.
Okay.
And those are the areas, and there are professionals out there, such as my dear friend Monica, who can actually work with you on saying, how do we reprogram? And you'd be surprised, Heidi, how quick these methods are. It doesn't have to be years and years of therapy, not at all. It's
Right.
literally just find out what they are and program your brain differently for an abundance mindset.
That's
Or
great. What is her name?
her name is Monica Roseberry, and on my website we actually did an interview with her on
Okay.
conversations between friends, and we have an hour and 15 minutes. I want to say it was a very lengthy, it was very engaging, and
All
she
right.
even very so generous gave away a part of her protocol that
Okay.
everybody can do to immediately change some of these mindsets that are no longer serving you.
I love that. Okay, so we'll make sure that we get that into the show notes so that we
Perfect.
can go to it and take a look at that and listen to that,
Mm-hmm.
because that is probably pretty fascinating, I'm imagining.
It
Because
really is. It really is. And if you've ever had circles, even these vicious circles, you make money and then all of a sudden, like, where did it go? Something
right.
happened and the money disappears, right? Many times it goes back to something that's a pattern
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
no longer serving you.
Maybe you sabotage yourself or something because you're like, oh, you're getting too successful, that's not who you are, and then you sabotage yourself to go back.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a mindset thing. Okay, good. All right, well, I'm excited to listen to that sounds really, really great. Are there common things that you find with your clients that are challenges, as far as money? I mean, and then does that change between men and women? I'm always curious about that because men seem a little bit different about money than women. Or is that just my perception?
I'm not sure that it's perception, and I will say I'm not going to generalize because there are women who are just they have it so under control.
Yeah.
They are the driver in their family, right? But I will say that it, too many women they seem intimidated when it comes to the topic of money.
Okay.
So the reason, Heidi, that I was motivated to start a financial empowerment community and a movement, which that is what Afflowent is to say that no sister of ours should ever feel she cannot learn what she needs to learn about money, about investing, about abundance, about being hugely successful. She should never feel that because this is still a very male dominated industry, right? The
Right.
finance
Yeah.
industry,
Sure.
that,
Absolutely.
maybe I don't want to go to the banker or the investment broker that talks a mile a minute and or way too fast and over people's heads using jargon.
Yeah.
She needs to have a platform where she can go and learn and feel empowered to make really good decisions.
I like that a lot.
And lately I've been hearing that it's really not so universal to women, because I've been asked to develop programs co-ed as well. So I guess this can happen to anyone. But I think there is so much information, and what we don't need more of, Heidi, is information. We need transformation.
Okay.
Yes, we don't need another blog and another opinion, right?
So true. There's so much information out there. You don't know what's true anymore. So transformation I love that. All right. So that is is that something that you focus on in Afflowent as well, is transformation?
Yes. And what I focus on is really to say, making money is not complicated. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. You just have to know a few simple steps. It's refreshing, right?
It's so refreshing to hear. Yes. Okay, good.
Yes, my industry does a great job making it super complicated, and I subscribe to a different philosophy.
I'm so glad. You're the perfect person for my interview, because it does seem like it is complicated. My husband does all of our investments, right? So I'm a creative. And so, but that doesn't matter. See, that's a belief, right? That's a belief. Mm-hmm. So I need to listen to your podcast with Monica, because I can't wait to do that. But I do think that sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't want to think about our investments, but really I should be doing that. I should be paying more attention to it.
Yes, I'm going to empower you now to do that, because it feels amazing to start conquering this topic. Right? Yeah. You said something, I'm creative, I'm the creator. Making money is an extremely creative process too.
That's very true. And that's very true. I've always, I do create, like I'm an entrepreneur. So I'm not afraid to be in business, and I can make money. Now, I am very good at making money with interior design. And so I think I have a belief about that where I'm like, oh, I can do that in my sleep. So those are beliefs that work very well. It just depends on where you focus and what your beliefs are as far as that certain area, because I do have that area where I'm like, oh yeah, no problem, I could do that in my sleep, so I'm sure you see that too.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it has a lot to do with our comfort zone. And I'm the first one to say interior design to me, Heidi, is intimidating. So I'm writing goals every day to say, I can do this. I can find accessories that are going to look amazing. And I think with more opportunities, we have this tremendous opportunity to increase our capacity and our capabilities. Mm-hmm. And we just have to believe in ourselves that anything is possible. We just have to put our mind around it.
Yes, I totally agree with that. So can you give us, I think that we lack a certain amount of education in our schools, and people come out of college and they don't know how to do things financially.
Correct.
I mean, it's crazy to me. I do not understand why we're not having these programs in school. But, so in the 20s and 30s and 40s, are there certain things that people should be doing, like absolutely that they should be doing in those stages? Or is there anything you could give us that would improve their financial situation in those age groups?
Absolutely, Heidi. And I feel so strong about this topic as well. I'm raising two teenage daughters. One is a sophomore in college, the other one's sophomore in high school. And it's beyond me that the school system, as you were saying, does not teach financial literacy. And so those young people come out in the careers, and this is why I made it a practice. The children of all of my clients, they get absolute free advice. They fall under the umbrella of their parents, and I get calls about I started my first job, super exciting. Now, what's that 401k? What do I need to do?
And I
spend time on education, because it is not something they learn.
Right.
But it is, I feel so strong. We have to start some kind of movement at some point, Heidi, to get this into the curriculums in schools.
Yes.
But what the best thing, 20s, 30s, 40s, but the earlier you start, the better, right?
Yes. Yes,
So
absolutely.
the first thing, even in when you're 16 or 17, let's say your parents have a business and you can help out here and there and you actually get paid, start investing some of that money,
Wow.
right? Start a Roth IRA for minors. And a lot of my clients do that. And it's the simplest thing to accumulate some tax-free dollars for way later on.
Yeah.
And it
That's
starts a nice dialogue with the young generation to say, you know, you don't need to spend everything you bring in. How about let's talk about your goals, right? What would you like to do in 2 or 3 years? Did you want to travel? Do you want to buy a new car, right? How are we going to get there? And so I would always start with young people to motivate them. What's the why, right?
yeah.
If you can't just say invest, here's a Roth IRA. Well, what is it and why?
Right, because they don't
So
understand.
let's talk about their goals and help them figure out how to get there.
Absolutely. I love that. That's so I know for instance, my little sister she was my husband loves the finance side like you do. And so he helped her from right out of the gate, and she would have never understood it. But once she started seeing her 401k grow, I mean, she's like, wow, I
That's
actually
amazing.
have this much money and oh my goodness, the stock market did this and I gained, $2,000 overnight, so that's
Yeah.
incredible to me. I never knew that. Even at her age, I still didn't know that. And so I think that that is a beautiful thing because money does make money.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you have
It
money,
can work for you, right?
that's
Yeah.
right. It can work for you. And that's the thing that I don't think people really realize. Especially if you don't if you weren't raised with people that have money or around
Mm-hmm.
people that have money where they're like talking about it, you don't realize if you have money, it's making you money if you have it in the right spot. So I think that's really, really good. And I know from experience and just I was in real estate for a while and people would come in and I mean, this happened a lot, and they couldn't even write a $500 earnest check. So I don't know. Is that something that there are a lot of Americans that can't write a $500 check? Have you found that? I mean, probably not coming to you with wealth. You know, I guess you probably don't run into that a lot, but
It's out there though, Heidi, and
yeah,
I think the society at large is programmed on monthly subscriptions. Think about everything we do is, can I afford another monthly subscription, right? Or
right.
another monthly payment? Oh, I want to buy a car. How much monthly payment can I use for that car? And I think what we need to start doing is flip that and say, how much do I want to pay myself first? And
Yes.
put that aside and then start looking at all the monthly payments that are subscriptions and expenses and so on. We have to develop a culture, if you will, where part of our income, part of our resources always gets saved and invested.
That's what you mean by pay myself first, right?
Exactly.
Is saving, putting money in savings for your future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, good. So paying yourself first, no matter what you make, right?
Exactly.
Okay. All right, good.
Just always have a bucket of money. And of course, the larger this bucket gets, you definitely want that money to work for you, right? This is where investing comes in. And I will say for younger people, if they have not had a lot of exposure to investing, I just had this discussion with my older daughter, Heidi, and she works on the side as part of college for a very hip Canadian yoga clothing company and loves it. And that company happens to be public, right? So you can actually buy shares in the company.
Wow.
And when she came home and she said, Mom, we were on target with our revenues, we reached our goals, and now we get bonuses. I said, so you're doing great, right? And she goes, yeah, the company is doing amazing. I mean, the amount of people, even during COVID, that come in. And I said, well, how about now the money that you make there? How about you buy some of the stocks?
Wow.
Because you are first hand seeing that this company is still meeting the targets. That
Right.
means they're doing well, right?
In a
And of
very
course, I
tough
looked
time.
into it first too. And there's a really good book, which is kind of an oldie out there, but it's called One Up on Wall Street by Peter Lynch.
One up on Wall.
One Up on Wall Street. And Peter Lynch was one of those uber successful mutual fund creators that just had an incredible performance in his fund. And he wrote this book to say, how did I do so well over such a long period of time? And the number one advice, Heidi, and I think we can all learn from that when we look at our youth and what's trendy, is he would ask his kids and grandkids and say, so what is that Snapchat, let's say, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they'd be like, well, this is this app we use and everybody's on it. And he'd be like, okay, so when that stock goes public, why wouldn't you buy that when every person on the planet is using this app? Right? And this is not a commercial for Snapchat, by the way. I do not claim to know anything about the stock because I'm not investing in it.
Right.
But what I'm saying is he got into these opportunities very early. As soon as he saw a trend,
Wow.
he'd be like, oh, let me look into this company, right?
Uh-huh.
And this book sparked my conversation with my daughter to say, if you know this company is doing well, maybe you want to participate in their profits by not just receiving a bonus, but actually investing in that company.
Wow, that's awesome.
So we have these opportunities to have those dialogues.
Yeah, that is so good. All right. Well, hopefully she takes you up on it.
I think she will.
Yeah.
She'll start out small. She's more conservative.
She's had a good example. Okay, so I oftentimes, being wildly successful, it has to include being happy. And so I ask a happiness question, and I'm going to switch this one up for you too, because we're talking about money. So many people think I would be happier if I have more money. From your experience, and we have discussed this a little bit, from your experience though, do you find that true? And for people out there that think that, what would you say to them?
I'm going to segue into this a little bit because I think it's very relevant in the time we live in, Heidi. I had a conversation with one of my very dear physician clients and friends. And when the markets corrected, his account balance saw a decline, right? And I reached out to him. He said, I'm going to tell you one thing, Claudia, I never worry about money. And I said, okay, so now I'm really intrigued. Please share more, right? How do you not worry about money? You're obviously working extremely hard, and this is your, the fruit of your hard labor, saving lives daily. And he said, because what I'm seeing as a physician, there is so much more to life than money. It puts it all under perspective.
Yeah. Wow.
And what I would encourage your listeners to think about is really, it is all about perspective. So many things in life is when you change your perspective, everything changes.
Yeah.
And when you change the perspective to say, money does come and go, when you have your health, when you have your family, when you have beautiful relationships, when you have the ability to give to charities and make an impact or volunteer for charities, because it doesn't have to always be money, it can be our time, then we have a very rich and fulfilled life.
Right.
And then here's the moral to the story. His wealth increases and there are so many serendipities, there are so many good things that keep happening to him. And I really attribute it to his very healthy mindset, to his perspective, and the fact that there is no fear involved around money.
Wow. That's incredible.
Isn't that powerful?
Yeah, it's super powerful because I find that to be something that it's very true, even with most things in life, not just money, is that when you just let it go and realize that what's supposed to be will be, and life is happening for you, not to you, then you do calm down. And when you calm down and you let things just kind of flow, they do. And usually they flow beautifully. And that is what he's experiencing, is he's not stressed out and uptight and making changes, and because he knows it's all going to be okay. And even if he lost his money, he'd still be okay. And I love that.
And Heidi, the one thing I will add to this though is because this could easily be perceived as, okay, so I guess we can just not worry about it then and just, think abundance, abundance, abundance. No, there is an element to, and in the energy, I'm in an energy community, and it's really a beautiful addition to my life. And one of these stories that Dr. B shares is when you hold a slippery fish, right?
Yes.
And money really, for me, that has a lot of attribution to money. If you hold it too tight, what happens to the slippery fish, right? It'll escape.
Yes.
But if you hold it too loose, it'll escape too. So what we have to find is the balance between not being afraid, not having fear, but also, and this takes us right back to the beginning of our talk, to be in reality, be aware and accurate.
Yes.
So he's absolutely, my client is very educated around money. He asks all the right questions, but at the same time, he does not have that fearful feeling or scarcity or, oh my God, what if I lost it all? No.
Right.
The perspective is, it's all there, it's all good. But you still want to be in control of your money. You still want to be aware of where you're at, and be a learner at all times.
Yeah. You still have to take action.
Be interested. You have to take action, and that's going to fuel all of your goals, right?
Yeah. See, that's the difference between, because you could say, well, it's pie in the sky. And if you just imagine things, then it'll happen. But, you can do all of that and have those thoughts. But if, let's say, somebody says, oh, you should purchase this stock, or you should, invest in this company, and it feels right, and it came when there was a time where you felt enlightened, yeah, maybe you should go do that. Because I always say, when the opportunity knocks, open the door, right? Because sometimes people don't. They're like, oh, that's just not for me. Or, but yeah, if you take that step into, and sometimes people have risk aversion, but it includes a little bit of risk, right?
It will, but do your research too.
Yes.
So you find your senses are open, you find this amazing opportunity, it feels good. And then the action steps below that, Heidi, is to say, get the data.
Right.
Find the accurate data. Don't just be like, oh yeah, my friends all say this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And we all know it, right? Money is talked about around water coolers a lot, and there's always the best thing to invest now in all the news media, which is usually next year was not the greatest thing, right? So do your research. Make sure you have accurate data. So it's a combination between knowing the opportunities there, feeling good about it, and then getting the necessary data in place as well.
Wow. Okay. That's very, very, very good, valid advice. So tell me a little bit about Afflowent, and just kind of, because I'd like to make sure that people know what you're doing, what that's all about.
Thank you for asking. It's my passion project.
I know. I'm excited. I love it.
I always say, when people say, what motivated you to start Afflowent? There's only one of me, and there's only so many clients I will ever take on in my practice, because I'm very service oriented. But there is so much opportunity for education.
Yes.
And so my goal, Heidi, is to have education out there in abundance for every woman on this planet, to have a platform where they can come to learn as much as they want, take deep dives as far as they'd like. We're in the process of developing a course, which is titled The Lotus Method. And the reason it's titled as such is Lotus, as you know, stands for abundance, but it is a method because it is not information, it is transformation.
Yeah.
The course will absolutely talk about mindsets and programming and beliefs that no longer serve us, but it will also teach us about where do I go if I want to invest? Who do I turn to? Who can I trust? What if I want to learn all about investing and do it myself? What are the steps involved? Where do I get the accurate data?
Wow, that's wonderful information.
How do I educate my children around money, because schools are not doing it? And the modules will break down into all those different areas so that every woman can have a place where they not only now receive the information, the transformation, but we are a community where money is non-threatening, non-intimidating, and we're a judgment-free zone as well. So we're on Facebook, we're building a wonderful community in a Facebook group. And then of course the courses are coming out in the next few months as well, which I'm super excited about.
Cannot wait to see those. So I'll put your website in the show notes. And is there other ways that people can get in touch with you or find you if they want to talk to you or work with you?
I would say we met on social media and in a conference, right? We met at a conference, stayed in touch over social media. So social media is a great way to stay in touch.
Yes.
My Instagram is my first and last name. I know, very creative.
Mine's the same.
That's the easiest way for people to find me, right?
Great.
Our Facebook group is titled Afflowent. So please let us know if you'd like to be part of it. And then, of course, you can find me on my website at claudiasawaf.com. And I'd love to hear from your listeners. And I'm super excited. If there are questions, I entertain answers in our Facebook group. I'm very engaged in the group to make sure that there's value.
And I'm gonna challenge you to do a course for teens and young adults on finances. I think you could do one, at least just make sure you're doing this, something like that, because I think it could be really, really, really good and really helpful for every family, and not just your clients, but for every family. I think they could benefit from that. So I know you're glad to hear that.
No, it's challenge accepted. But Heidi, I also think to make sure that young people are not getting the wrong programming, we have to address it from all levels.
Yeah.
And
that's
so
true.
It's the saying, right? You educate a woman, you educate a woman, and you educate an entire village.
That's right.
So we'll start there, and then we'll work our way to the teams.
Sounds wonderful. Okay. Well, this has been so much fun and so full of information. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wealth of knowledge. And I look forward to working with you again and talking to you again.
Thank you, Heidi, for the opportunity. So much fun.
Bye-bye. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends, because we're just going to keep going bigger and better places together. And I love that about us. Talk to you in a few days.